Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
The professor just now explained the power of crowd. You see, crowd is not just a bunch of people. They are the people who answer my questions on Quora or create articles on Wikipedia, which I read. Crowdsourcing can be helpful in many ways. For example, it can help me to find out the number of gems in this jar, or help me to estimate or calculate the weight of this bag. You must be wondering how. Let me show you. Estimate the number of gems in this jar.
180,
220.
400,
Around 600.
1000, 500, 300 maybe,
550.
It's around 1500.
2000,
500. Okay.
I expect about 500.
250. It's
1500.
1500. Okay.
250. 400. 400.
1010,
200.
200.
250. 200.
200,
250.
300, 350, 263,
275. 300.
220.
170. 100.
720,
500. 650.
300,
1781.
220.
700.
what is this all about?
Random guess.
Okay,
We'll let you know.
say 200, 700 approx.
170.
500.
Okay, let's say 197, 250,
Around 200.
270,
2000.
2000, I think 250, 125,
350.
450, around 320, 467,
1000.
300. I'll get one after that.
Sure, if you guess it right.
Okay, then 250,
600. 500.
120,
Approximately 250. 400. 500. Not more than 350.
400. 300. Okay. 250. And what about you, sir? 300. Okay. Hey guys, guess what happened? There were actually 375 gems in the jar and the crowd guessed it right. I know nobody's guess was exact, but if we take the mean of all their guesses, it is actually coming out to be close to 375. Wanna know how? Let me show you. As you all know, we conducted an experiment in which number of people were asked about the number of gems or candies in the jar. Although nobody guessed it right, but still we got the right answer. How? Let us find out. This kind of experiment was first conducted by Francis Galton in a country fair. Ox weight judging competition was organized in which around 800 tickets were issued. Every participant was asked about the weight of the ox. The actual weight of the ox was 1198 lbs, and if we take median of all the estimates, it came out to be 1207 lbs. As you can see, 1207 lbs is very much near to 1198 lbs. This is the wisdom of crowds. This is the power of crowd. So now I would like to explain the reason behind it. Why does wisdom of crowd prove out to be very useful here? So let us look at this picture. We have actual value, okay? Some people underestimate the actual value of the ox and some people overestimate the actual value of the ox. Okay. The underestimation part and the overestimation part, it actually cancels out. So what is obtained at the end is the actual value. This is the same principle that is playing behind median. For example, we are given a data comprising of -3, -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3. Here we have median as 0. For example, 0 is the actual value here, and some people guessed it 1, some people guessed it 2, some people guessed it 3, and some people underestimated the value like -1, -2, -3. Okay, but if we take the difference of values and the median here, we'll get -1, 1, -2, 2, -3 and 3. And then we take the summation of all these values, we'll at the end get the median of the data. This is the same principle that is playing behind the wisdom of crowds, and this is the same principle that is playing behind the median of the data. Okay? The underestimation part actually cancels the overestimation part, and the answer that we got from the wisdom of crowds from many people estimates is actually the actual value of the ox. So as I said, overestimation minus underestimation comes out to be 0. So the answer that is obtained from the estimates of the crowd is actually the actual value, is the true value of the ox. So what we did in our experiment was, we asked people about the number of candies or gems in the jar. In our experiment, around 75 people participated. The actual number of gems in the jar were 375. The median of the data that is obtained is 300, and the average of all the estimates that has been obtained is 351. So as you can see, median is not giving us the right answer here. Even the average, the mean of all the estimates is giving us right answer here. So according to the recent studies, it has been observed that if we take the other aggregate measures, then they can also be proved to be useful in these kinds of experiments. I repeat, recent studies have shown that if we take other aggregate measures, then these aggregate measures can prove to be more useful in these kinds of experiments. So in these kinds of experiments, you have to calculate a number of aggregate measures. By aggregate measures, I mean you have to calculate median, mean and other things. So here we calculated the average of all the estimates, and that came out to be 351. As you know, as you can see, 351 is closer to 375 as compared to the median, that is 300. So here we calculated the average of all the estimates, and that came out to be near to actual number of gems. Here we didn't calculate mean as total number of the estimates, sum of all the estimates divided by total number of the estimates. We didn't calculate mean by this formula. What we did was, we calculated 10% trimmed mean. What is 10% trimmed mean? Let us find out. In 10% trimmed mean, what you have to do is, you have to remove the 10% smallest and 10% largest values. The sample that has been obtained by this method, you have to calculate the mean of the sample obtained. Yes. Here we are using 10% trimmed mean. You can use 5%, 8% trimmed mean as per your data. Actually, it depends on the data. But on our data that we obtained from 75 people, 10% trimmed mean gave us the right answer, gave us the answer that was very near to the actual value. So how can we calculate 10% trimmed mean? First of all, you have to remove the 10% smallest and 10% largest values. How can you obtain 10% smallest and 10% largest values? In this particular thing, you have to sort the data. What do I mean by sorting the data? Sorting means arranging the elements in ascending or descending order. So if we sort the data, if we arrange the elements in ascending order, it will be easier to calculate the 10% smallest and 10% largest values, and then you can easily remove them from the sample. After that, you have to calculate the mean of the sample that has been obtained after removing the 10% smallest and 10% largest values. This is how you can calculate trimmed mean. So as I already said, this is the wisdom of crowd, this is the power of crowds. This kinds of experiment, they explain the wisdom of crowds in a better fashion. Okay? So what is wisdom of crowds? If we look at its definition, it is actually the collective opinion of group of individuals. Collective opinion is always better than the expert opinion. Yes, collective opinion is always better than the expert opinion. If we take the expert opinion in these kinds of experiments, it won't be as accurate as the collective opinion. You can do that. You can actually ask the number of gems in the jar from an expert, and you can actually ask the number of gems in the jar from crowd. The collective opinion of the crowd here would always be better than the expert opinion. There is another example from our day-to-day life based on wisdom of crowds, and that is Wikipedia. Wikipedia is a crowdsourced portal. Here anyone can write, edit articles. As you know, anyone can write and edit articles on Wikipedia. There is also an encyclopedia available online called Britannica. Britannica is curated by experts, and Wikipedia is curated by people like us, by the crowd. If we take the comparative study of Wikipedia and Britannica, recent research has shown that Wikipedia is as good as Britannica. Yes, this is right. Wikipedia is as good as Britannica. Isn't it amazing? An encyclopedia that has been curated by crowd, by the normal people, and an encyclopedia that has been curated by the experts, you can do the comparative analysis and you will get to know about it that Wikipedia, the encyclopedia that has been curated by crowd, is as good as the encyclopedia that has been curated by the experts. So this is another example of wisdom of crowds. So before jumping to the programming part of crowd computing, let us try to manually analyze this data. As you know, we collected the data from 75 people. We have the data from 75 people, the guesses of 75 people. As you know, the actual number of gems in the jar were 375. And if we look at the data, some people overestimated it, some people guessed it 720, 1010, and even 1500 and 2002. But some people also underestimated it. Some people guessed it 100, 150, 200, 250, 300. So this is the underestimation part. Many people underestimated the data and many people overestimated the data. As I said, the overestimation part, it cancels the underestimation part. So the average that comes out is actually near to the actual value. So if we calculate the average of this data, let us calculate. It is basically average from A1 to A75. Yes. It is coming out to be 426.37. But guys, remember that we don't calculate this mean. This mean is basically sum of all the estimates divided by total number of estimates. What we do here is we calculate the trimmed mean. So I'll basically delete this. So how can we calculate the trimmed mean? Trimmed mean is basically you have to remove the 10% smallest and 10% largest values. It depends on you whether you take 10% or 20%, but be careful in your choice. Here we'll be calculating through 10% trimmed mean. For 10% trimmed mean, we have to remove the 10% smallest and 10% largest values. How can you do that? First of all, you have to sort the data. Sort the data means arranging the data in ascending order. So here, first of all, what I'll do is I'll sort the data in ascending order. So how can you do that in a spreadsheet? You just go to data and click on sort sheet by column A. I'll just do that because there are no other columns here. So I'll just do that. Here we have the sorted data. As you know, 100, 120, 150, 150, 197. You can figure out that this data is sorted in ascending order. So now what we have to do here is we have to remove the 10% smallest and 10% largest values. If we take the 10% of 75, it comes out to be 7.5. I'll basically take the floor value, so I'll remove 7 smallest and 7 largest values. So let us do that. So we'll remove 100, 120, 150, 150, 150. So there are 5 values have been removed, so 2 more are still to go. So remove 170 and 175 too. So we have removed the 7 smallest values. It's time to remove the 7 largest values. Let us go till the end and remove the 7 largest values. So we'll remove 2000, 1786, 1500, 1500. So 3 more are still to go. We'll remove this 1010. We'll remove 1000 and we'll remove 722. So after deleting the 10% smallest and 10% largest values, this sample has been obtained from 180 to basically 700. So I like you to calculate the average of this particular sample rather than the previous sample. So we'll calculate it. We'll just put the formula here again in the spreadsheet. It's average from A8 to A68 exactly. So if we calculate the average, as I said, it came out to be near to 351. It is basically 351.6 and the actual number of gems in the jar were 375. So as you can see that it is very near to the actual value. It is an amazing concept. The wisdom of crowds, it comes into play in many of our day-to-day experiences and many of the experiments. So if you look here, as you know, we have calculated the trimmed mean and the trimmed mean has come out to be 351.6, which is actually very near to 375. That is the actual value. Isn't this amazing? So let us try to program this particular concept. First of all, I'll take a list named estimates in which I'll store the estimates of 75 people. I have this data here, so I'll just copy paste. As you know, we have to calculate the trimmed mean. For trimmed mean, we have to sort the data. So I'll just sort this particular list by using the function sort. Yes. Let us check whether it has been sorted or not. Length of estimates. Just print the values so that we get to know that the estimates list has been sorted. I'll just run this. As you can see, the list has been sorted. You can see 100, 120, 150, 170, 175. The sort function, it by default sorts the data in ascending order. I repeat, the sort function by default sorts the data in ascending order. So we don't need this. So now calculate the trimmed value. As you know, we are calculating the 10% trimmed mean here. So what will we do here? We will calculate the trimmed value as 0.1 of length of estimates. But here we can see that it will give us float value or decimal value. So we'll typecast it to int so that we obtain an integer value out of it. Here 0.1 into 75 will be 7.5. But if we'll typecast it to int, it will take the floor value. So 7.5 into 75 into 0.1 will be 7.5, and it will take the floor value, so TV will become 7. Now what we have to do here is we have to delete the smallest 10% values and the largest 10% values. So first of all, let us remove the smallest 10% values. It is very easy in Python. You can just start the list from TV. It will remove the first 10% values. If you want to check, let us try to check here for I in range length of estimates. We have to print here, print estimates of I. Let us try to check this now. Yes, we got the values here. As you know, initially it started from 100, but now it is starting from 180. That means it has removed the smallest 10% values. So now let us try to remove the largest 10% values here too. So it is also very easy here in Python. We'll just remove the largest 10% values. For that, we have to decrease the length of the estimates. We'll just take it from length of estimates to minus TV. It will remove the largest 10% values. Now we have to calculate the mean of this particular list that has been obtained by removing the 10% smallest and 10% largest values. So what I'll do here, I'll just use the function mean here that has been already defined in Python. That is mean. We have to calculate the mean of estimates, but mean function has been defined in library statistics, so we have to import that from statistics, import mean, so that we can use here. So let us try to run this particular program and check whether the mean that we calculated in the spreadsheet and the mean that we get here is same or not. Let us try to do that. Yes, it is coming out to be exactly same. It is 351.59, and as you know, the actual value was 375. We have discussed this fact earlier when we were discussing the values, when we were discussing the estimates in the spreadsheet. So as you can see, we are done with the program here, but in Python there is much easier way to calculate the trimmed mean too. There is another way, so let us try to do that also here. For that, you have to import another library, that is SciPy. From SciPy, you have to import stats. Import stats. We just have to use the estimates.sort here. We need not use any other estimates here, because as you can see that we have deleted the values here, so we don't need that here. So I'll just remove that or just comment it. So now what we have to do here is we have to calculate the trimmed mean. In Python there is a function named trim mean which will directly calculate the trimmed mean. So it is basically stats dot trim underscore mean. You have to supply the particular list on which you have to calculate the trimmed mean. So it is estimates here. Now you have to supply the percentage of values that you want to remove from the top and bottom of your list. So as we know, we are using 10% here, so I'll write 0.1 here. So the function here is, first of all, you have to import the stats library here from SciPy. After that, the function is trim underscore mean. In trim underscore mean, you have to supply the list that you are operating on, that is estimates here, and then you have to supply the particular percentage of values that you need to remove from the top and the bottom. It is 10% here, so we will write 0.1 here. So I'll just straight away print the n value here. So let us try to run this again. It is coming out to be 351 again. As you can see, the values that we get here is 351.59. Same as we got in spreadsheet, same as we got in the earlier program. So as you can see that it is very easy to calculate the trimmed mean in Python. Very much easier than spreadsheet and very much easier than the previous program that we did. I hope this program was useful to you. Have a nice day. Happy learning. Hello everyone. In this programming screencast, I'll show you how can you plot the estimates of the crowd so that you can get to know which estimate, whether median, mean was close to the actual value. So how can you plot different numbers on Python? Let me show you. For plotting different numbers, for plotting any sort of data, you have to import one library, and that is import matplotlib.pyplot. You have to import matplotlib.pyplot. I'll name it as PLT. Okay. So let me show you how can you plot different numbers. I'll just write plt.plot and I'll pass a list here. So I'll pass like 1, 2, 3 and 4. So let us see how it plots. First of all, you have to save it. Plot.py and save. We have a graph here. We plotted 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 are plotted on the y-axis. Let me show you that here it is 1, 2, 3, 4. So in this way you can plot a particular data with the help of matplotlib. So you must be wondering, here we didn't pass any x values, but in Python it automatically generates the x values if you don't pass any. I repeat, in Python it automatically generates the x values if you don't pass any. Now I'll show you if you want to pass the x values, then how will it look like. So I'll pass one more list, and that will be like 1, 4, 9 and 16. Here 1, 2, 3, 4 will be the x values, and 1, 4, 9, 16 will play as the y values. So let us see how the plot comes out to be here. So as you can see, we change the y values. So we get 1, 4, 9 and 16. Here the line that has been obtained is not straight, it is curved, and 1, 2, 3, 4 are playing as the x values here. Okay, this is how you can plot in Python through matplotlib. There are many other options that are available. You can also use many other options. I'll let you know. One option is you can use the labels as x labels and y labels. You can actually label the x-axis and y-axis. Here we'll do plt.ylabel. I'll write some values. This is how you can label your x-axis and y-axis. Let us see how this happens. See, we have a label here, some values. Okay, since I use the y label, it will be shown in y-axis. You can also use x label if you want to use any label in the x-axis. Okay, so this is how you can use the labels, and this is how you can plot through Matplotlib. Next, this is the line graph. If you want to plot in other fashion, if you want to plot dots and in other fashion, let me show you how you can do that. For example, if I want to plot in dots, so let us see how you can do that. In plt.plot, you can write another argument. How do you want to plot the data? So I'll write RO here. If I write RO, let us see how the plot comes out to be. See, the plot comes out to be in the form of red dots. It is 1, 4, 9 and 16. So this is how you can plot in the form of dots. Other options are also available. For example, if you want to plot in the form of red dashes, so you can write R hyphen hyphen in place of RO. Now let us run it. This is how you can plot in the form of red dashes. I'll show you some other option too. For example, if you want to plot in the form of blue squares, you will just write BS. You will just write BS. Let us run that. Yes, here you have plot in the form of blue squares. BS stands for blue squares. As it is 1, 4, 9 and 16. And there is one more option that is available, that is in the form of green triangles. You can also do that. Let us run that and So here you have the data in the form of green triangles. Let us check that. Here we have 1, 4, 9 and 16. So in this way you can plot in the form of red dashes, blue squares and also in the form of green triangles. This is how you can plot the data through Matplotlib in Python. Here in this programming screencast, I'll show you how can you plot the estimates made by the crowd. As I said, first of all you have to import the Matplotlib library. So let us import that. Import matplotlib.pyplot as plt. Here is the estimates array that has been given to us. So I'll just plot this array. So let us do that. plt.plot. I'll just write the estimates array here. So let us plot that. Sorry, it is Matplotlib. So as I said, if we don't give the x values, Python generates the x values on its own. So since we don't need any sort of x or y values here, we just want to show the estimates here. So what I'll do here is I'll take this estimates array in the x-axis, and for y-axis I'll keep it constant. I'll keep constant y values for all these estimates. I repeat, I'll keep constant y values for all the estimates. For that I have to create another array. For example, another list. I'll create like y. So for I in range length of estimates, I'll just append any constant value here. For example, I'll take 5. So here we need to plot estimates that will be taken in the x-axis, then we'll take y. So let us run this program now. So as you can see, we have a straight line here, but we want to show the estimates. These are discrete values, not continuous. So I'll just use RO here, or R dash dash. I'll prefer to use R dash dash. R dash dash, in the previous programming screencast I've explained R dash dash stands for red dashed lines. So let us run it again. So we have the estimates in the form of dashed lines, red dashed lines. So now I want to plot the mean and the median of all the estimates so that I can get to know that which value is nearer to the actual value. So for that, as it has been explained in the previous programming screencast, that we have to trim the sample, we have to trim the 10% smallest and 10% largest values. So let us do that. I'll just first of all sort the estimates, estimates dot sort. That will arrange the elements in the ascending order. After that, I have to decide a trim value, that is 10% in our case. So I'll just say trim value is equal to 0.1 into length of estimates. Length of estimates. So now we also have to typecast it to int. So I'll just do that. Int. Now let us trim the values. So now estimates is equal to estimates trimmed values colon. It will trim the values from the estimates list. We also have to trim the values again. So let us do that. It will start from the trimmed value. In trimmed value in our case is 7. So it will start from 7 and it will go till length of estimates minus TV. So I'll just write colon here, length of estimates minus TV. So the array, the sample that has been obtained is from TV, from the trim value to length of estimates minus TV. This has already been explained in the previous programming screencast. So we are done with the Y array. We are also done with the estimates array, the trimmed estimates array. So now let us plot that. The trimmed estimates array. So there is some error. Let us look at this. X and Y must have same first dimension. Okay, now we have to append according to the new length of estimates. Please note that. So I'll append in Y according to the new length of estimates. Please note that the length of estimates has changed. So we have to append in Y according to the new length of estimates. So let us do that. So we have another graph which is showing the estimates. Please observe that in the previous graph we had till 2000, but in the new graph we have till 700 because we have trimmed the values. We have trimmed the 10% smallest as well as 10% largest values. So we are done with plotting that. So now let me show you which value is nearer to the actual value. Actual value in our case is 375. So first of all, let me plot that. I'll just write plt dot plot. Just write 375 5 because we are taking constant values, and I'll represent it by, say, green triangle. So let us run it again. So we have 375 here. Now let me calculate the mean and median of this data. For that I'll import statistics. Import statistics. So it will be like plt dot plot. First value is statistics dot mean of the estimates, and the y value is constant, that is 5. I'll represent it by say red dots. So let us do that. Red dots. Run it again. So we have red dot here, that is the mean of the estimates, and the green dot here, that is the actual value. Let us also plot the median of the data. So I'll just write plt dot plot statistics dot median. I'll just write estimates. Take y as constant and represent it by blue square. Yes. So let us run it again. So as you can see that blue square, that is the median, it is here, and the mean, that is the red dot, that is nearer to the actual value, and blue square, that is the median, it is far away from the actual value. So actually it depends on the data. You have to calculate many aggregate measures like mean, trend mean and median of the data, and whichever aggregate measure is nearer to the actual value, you can take that. These kinds of experiments work on the aggregate measures. I hope this programming screencast was useful to you guys, and have a nice day. Happy learning. Thank you.
Hey, what did you just order? I'll give you a hint. You have to guess it. Oh, brownie. Yeah, you're right. Okay. You'll also give me? Yeah. Flavor? Yeah.
You see what just happened? One person asks the other by giving him or her a jumbled word and says, "Can you tell me the right English word?" It is actually very complicated. Why? For the following reason. Look at the word rainbow. It is R-A-I-N-B-O-W. It's a 7-lettered word. And when you jumble it, it looks something like this. And there's only one English word which makes sense. But if you see all possible combinations of these letters, 7 letters, there are not just dozens or hundreds. There's actually more than 5,000 possible combinations with these 7 letters. So it's practically impossible for a person to guess what the word could be. It involves enormous amount of sort of thinking intelligence and seeing through the letters and then putting it in the right order. Only one amongst the 5040 possibilities is actually the right word. So similarly, we can go on asking take a random English word, shuffle it and pose it as a challenge, right? As and always, let us see how to write a computer code for this.
A person has a word in his mind, he shuffles it and asks the other person to guess what that word could be. This is the game. Sounds interesting? As and always, this being a Joy of Computing course, let us play this the fun way using our programming skills. Let's get started. Before starting off with the programming, let me just give you a summary of what the game is all about. This is nothing but there are two players in the game. Player 1 and player 2 say. Initially, we'll start off with player 1's turn. So, player 2 will have some word in his or her mind. What the person does is, he would rearrange the letters of the words. Basically, he would shuffle the word and write those letters in some random order, in some shuffled order. Not the original word exactly, he would write the shuffled word and present it to person 1 whose turn is it now. So this person is presented with a shuffled word. He is supposed to guess what the actual word could be. If he is able to guess, he would get a point. And this person would pose a question to the other person and the game goes like this. Whoever gets the maximum number of points is a winner, or it may even be a draw if both get equal number of points. This is how the game will go. So with this kind of strategy, let's play this game using our Python programming skills. So let's start with it. So we have to play the game. So play, you have got. We have to play the game. So for this, there is a warning that could be seen here. It says undefined name play. So we have said we want to play the game. What the thing has to be done, we have to define it. So let's start defining. Define play. This is the way by which you would start a function definition. So that is, play is something that you want to perform. This is not something that is already known to the computer. So you have to define that this is what is a thing you have to do when I say play. So you are giving a definition. So that's why you have to use DEF and then the name, whatever you wish to give. So I have to start my play. So as you would see, the second line appears indented. Indentation matters here. So as long as you maintain this level of indentation, all this would be considered as a tasks to be done if thing play is called. So let's start off with what all we need to do. So we will have two players. Maybe player 1, he will have some name. Let me say player 1 name. Player 1 name. Let us input the name. Input. For him to input, we should ask with a suitable message. So let me start with a message. Player 1, please enter your name. So this is for player 1. The same we have to repeat it with player 2. Player 2 name. You have to input his name. Input player 2, please enter your name. So alright, we have collected the names of the players. So initially both the players will start with 0 points. So let us assign it. Points to player 1 is 0. Points to player 2 is 0 again. And I said that the turns will be alternated. So one player would pose a question, the other will have to answer, and the next time it is reversed. So there are some turns. Here, instead of the players giving the question, we would have the computer pose a question to both the players. So the thing is like a computer is a third party which would give questions of same difficulty to both the players. So so there would be no biases associated with it. That is the idea. So we will make the computer pose the questions and both players will get their turns alternately, just like how it happened in the previous scenarios. The turns would be alternated and the question will be posed by the computer and answer has to be given by the players. So to keep track of whose turn it is, let us have some variable called turn. Turn, initially let it be 0. It can be any number. It's generally a practice in computer science to start counting from 0. So that is why we have given 0. Alright. So this game will go on indefinitely until the player, one of them wants to stop. That is, this is a 2-player game, so definitely we need 2 players. Only then the competitive spirit would be there. As long as both are willing to play, the game would continue. In case if one of them wants to stop, then the game would come to an end. So we need to continue it indefinitely. That is being taken care by this thing. While loop and condition. Condition I am given as 1. That means true. So while true, this would always be true, and we would end this only when the player wants to stop. That we will see later. We will be dealing with that too. Now, what should the person do? He has to get the question from the computer. So this is basically the computer's part. Computer's task is what is to be done here. What is it doing? It has to pick a word. There will be some picked word. The computer will pick some word. So it will have some dictionary. From that dictionary it will pick some words. So choose. That will be a function we will define later. So computer is choosing some word and it is returned as picked word. So that one word is picked from its dictionary or from its list. You can consider as. It has some list of words. From that list it is picking some word. So then it has to create the question. This is the task is to create the question. Create the question. So question is created by jumbling the picked word. Jumbling is nothing but you are just rearranging the letters of the word. You are jumbling the picked word. So done. So now once the question is ready, you can print the question. So far so good. Now let us come to the player's part. First is we'll start off with player 1 as the first player, then player 2. We will alternate it. To keep alternating the turns, we should keep track of the value of turn. So turn is set to 0. So let it be the case that at turn 0 player 1 will be playing, at turn 1 player 2 will be playing, at turn 2 again player 1 will play, at turn 3 player 2 will play. It goes on this way. As you would see, at the even values of turn, it is the chance of player 1. At the odd values, it is the chance of player 2. So to keep track of even and odd, we will use the modulo operator, that is nothing but the operator which would divide and return the remainder of division. So to get to know if it is even or odd, we can divide the turn value by 2 and see the remainder. For all even numbers, the remainder when divided by 2 is 0, and for odd numbers, the remainder is 1. So that fact we will be making use of it here and we will code. So as I said, we are going to use the modulo operator. If turn modulo 2 is equals to 0. The single equal to is assignment and double equal to is the condition check of equality. So this basically what it does is it will check this expression turn mod 2, that is it will take the value of turn, divide it by 2 and check the remainder. If that remainder is equal to 0, then this segment has to be executed. So you have to say that this is this person's turn. So let me print a message saying player 1 name. We know the name, we have got the name of the player. Player 1 name. This is your turn. Alright. So I have printed this message. So I have to get I have displayed the question. If you would have seen here, there is a statement print question. So the computer has printed the question, so that has displayed the question. So I have to ask what's on my mind. So that is, the computer is asking what's on my mind. So it has picked some word. What is the actual word? So it is asking what's on my mind. So you have to get the input for that. So for this question, the player would give an answer that has to be taken as an input. So we'll do this now. Answer is equal to input of what is on my mind. So computer has got some word in its mind. So that word the player has to guess. So that is the question. Makes sense? Okay. So this is a question posted by the computer, and for this question the user will give an answer which would be inputted and stored in this variable answer. So now if the answer given by the user is exactly equal to the picked word, if this answer is exactly equal to the picked word, then you are supposed to increase his points by 1. So he gets 1 point. So there will be some points already the player 1 has scored during the run of this game. So initially it is 0, but when the loop goes on, as and when the loop goes on, the points may change for the players. Maybe one player would have guessed a lot of words, but another one would not have been able to do so. There is a chance that a difference between the scores exists. So we will retrieve the previous score, add 1 to it and make it the new score. So player 1's point is nothing but his previous point plus 1. This is his new score, and you have to update him of his new score. Print your score is I can say it is stored in this variable p1, points of player 1. So this has been stored, and we have fetched the new value and we have displayed in this score after this answer. If this answer is right, then the score will be incremented. Otherwise, you should say that his answer is wrong. Else, print some suitable message and say the correct answer. Maybe I would say better luck next time. I thought the word that is stored in the variable picked word. So I thought this particular word. Like this, you're displaying a message to the user. And irrespective of what happens here, the next has to be you have to ask if he wants to continue the game or not. So that is, for that let us use another variable. Let us call it C for continue, probably C. You take the input from the user if he wants to continue or not. So maybe continue, quit. There is two possibilities. So let me post a message. Press 1 to continue and 0 to quit. So he has to decide if he wants to continue or quit. So this is the message post, and for this the user will give an input which will be captured by this variable C. And we have defined 0 is for quit. We have said to the user that 0 is for quit. So in case if he says 0, that is I want to quit, then if the input C is 0, that is he wants to quit, then you have to thank the user. Probably you can say you have to thank both of them actually, because till some point of time they would have played. So you have to thank both of them. Player 1 name, player 2 name. You have to thank both of them, and you have to display the points they have scored till now. Like before this particular word has occurred, player 2 would have scored some points, as well as player 1 would have got something. You have to display the summary as well. So you need the 2 points value as well. So you have to thank them by greeting with their names and showing them the summary of the game till now. So you have to thank them, and once everything is done, you end the loop, you quit the game. So how do you do that? You use the break statement. So once when this break statement is encountered, this break statement, once when it is encountered, the corresponding while loop would come to an end. So that is, the game would come to an end. So this is the game. Okay. So if this is for player 1, this particular thing, whatever we have done till now, is for player 1. So the next, what should I do, is for player 2. The procedure is just the same as whatever we have for player 1. The changes, what we have to do is, instead of player 1 name, player 1 points, we would be using the player 2 information there. That's it. That is it. So let me copy paste the same thing. Copied. So let me paste it. I have pasted it, but the indentation I have to take care of it. This has to be done in case if the turn value is odd. So for odd turn value, it is player 2's turns. So I'll have to do this. The indentation, please take care of the indentation. It is in the same column, column 9, and this is in column 9. Yeah, this is in the same column, and this thing has to be indented. Now everything looks perfect. Alright. So we have indented this, and as I said, it is not player 1 but it is player 2. So let me make the changes. It is player 2. Player 2. It is player 2, and the thanking message is just the same. Whenever if anyone wants to quit, the game comes to an end. So you have to thank both of them for their participation till now, as well as show them the summary. So the thanking part is the same, just that the updating of points differs from player 1 and player 2, because each of them have their own scores. So you need to have 2 different variables to keep track of both their scores. Alright, let me save till here. Okay, let me revise once again as to what I have done. this is we start off with the playing of the game here. We will ask for the names of both the players, player 1 and player 2. Initialize their points with 0, and to keep track of alternating the turns, we use a variable called turn. The computer would create a question here instead of the usual way where two people will create a question alternatively. Now this is just for fairness sake, because it may be the case that when humans are playing, one person has very good vocabulary and he is picking some very difficult words which is not very easy for an average person to guess. He is permuting, that is, he is shuffling the word in a difficult way. That may be the case. And other person may choose simple words, then it would create a biased state, as you could sense till now. So to ensure fairness, we'll give the task of creating the question to the computer. So computer is doing this, and just guessing what the jumbled word is the task of the players. So computer's task here, this has to be repeated continuously until the players want to quit the game. So we are using this particular loop while one. The computer is choosing a word from its list of words. Randomly it will choose some word and it will jumble that picked word and create a question. So it is now, after creating the question, it is displaying the question. So you have to alternate the turns. So for that I am using the modulo operator, which would return the remainder after division. So for odd numbers it is player 2's turn, even numbers is player 1's turn. For odd numbers, the remainder would be 1 when divided by 2, and for even numbers it is 0 when divided by 2. That is what is taken care of here. If turn mod 2 equal to 0, that is, if it is an even turn, then it should be the turn of player 1, because we are starting the turn with 0. That is the usual practice in computer science, to count from 0. So that is why we are doing it. It's not an issue in case if you start from 1 as well. You can in fact start from any value of turn. The thing is, it will alternate the turns between player 1 and player 2 as long as you use this mod 2 as your condition. So it will say, this is this player's turn. This is the question has been displayed already. What is that? The word I have on my mind. That is a question posed to the player. The player has to guess his word. So whatever is his guess, he'll type the guessed word. So if that is the correct guess, that is whatever he has answered is the exact word the computer has picked, then his points will be increased by 1. Otherwise, there is no increase in points. He will be intimated of the word the computer has thought. And then the computer would ask them if you would like to continue the game or quit the game. If they would like to quit, you have to greet them, you have to thank them for their participation till now and show them the summary of both their scores, and you quit the game. You're thanking them, you're showing the summary, and then you're quitting the game. The same goes for player 2 as well, just that the updating of points is different. See here, it is the points of player 1 is updated and points of player 2 is updated in case if it is the turn of player 2. So in the turn of the corresponding player, his points would be updated in case his answer is correct. That is how the game goes. Did you sense any missing gap here? There is a missing gap here. Also, there are some missing definitions which we need to do. We would do it in the next videos. In the next video, we would see the missing gaps and we'll define the undefined terms till now. Maybe choose, jumble, all these are intuitive to us, but the computer may not know what has to be done. So that we need to define them. And thank, it is intuitive to us, we need to define these things. That all we'll do it in the next video. Thanks for watching.